Welcome, Jane. I'm really excited to have you here. And I'm very excited that so many people have popped in live, and then I know that there will be a few who actually also watch the Facebook Live, and I probably will do a really lousy job monitoring the comments while we're talking. But so yeah, we're going to be talking about how to package your expertise into a profitable online course, because that's the area of expertise of the lovely Jane Sagalovic. I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
Nope, that was perfect. And I'm so excited to be here. I have to say, you posted this on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and I've never seen such like a fun, engaged group of people respond. So I'm so excited about this.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. And yeah, I just saw Kim's comment. So he actually knew you. It's such a small word. I just love it. So I'm really, really excited to have you here, because I know that, well, especially with the way things are and everybody does more work online, and there's also a lot of, coaches and, and therapists in my community, and that idea of, packaging that expertise up so that it isn't just that, repeating the same kind of thing one-on-one all the time is on a lot of people's minds, but people have a lot of questions. And so I'm really, really delighted to have you here. And so, I would love to start with giving you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, to let us know, obviously you already said before, I don't know whether we recorded, whether, where you're based, and, how did you come to be the founder of Scale Your Genius? Love that title.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jane. I think y'all know that. I am in Denver, Colorado, USA, where we were just chatting before we went live. We just had our first snowstorm of the season, which is about a month too early, and it was 100 Fahrenheit the day before. So it's been a little crazy, but I'm glad that the heat waves are over, at least for now, because they were getting a little out of control. But yeah, I founded Scale Your Genius about 3 years ago, and specifically to help highly skilled experts package their expertise into an online course. Before that, I started my career. I spent 18 years in corporate, working in strategy and finance in the investment world. And I hit that point. I don't know if a lot of the people watching have done the corporate to self-employed transition, but what happened for me was the stability and comfort were nice, but I had a really strong drive for impact. And that was just something that, I kind of kept changing corporate jobs, thinking it's somewhere out there. And then I realized that that's just not what exists there. So jumped ship to leave the comforts and the paycheck and all those things that are amazing to be able to create an impact. And more importantly for me, to see that impact on the business owners, like in their eyes, on their face, just to see how much their lives are changing. And so I chose to, this is now 6 years ago, start a consulting firm specifically helping small business owners improve their businesses. So I did that for 4 years, and then the last 3 focusing specifically on online programs, because I really saw the differential between, if you look at my website, I talk about on a mission to get rid of crappy online courses. And I just really saw, the difference between the crappy ones and the really amazing ones, and that it actually doesn't take more time, energy, or money to create a really good one. It just takes understanding the process and the intentionality of it. And so I was just so inspired to help highly skilled experts bring their wisdom into the world in a bigger way and really build a business of their dreams. Because I know, you mentioned therapists, dietitians, other coaches, consultants. It could be really hard to really create that dream life in business without working too much. I know, so many times our time and money and impact are tied together, and being able to unravel it so we can serve more people and make more money without working more is, I find it to be so important to be able to keep doing it and not get burned out and, not sit here dreaming of retirement and really enjoy the day to day. So that's the long version of how I got here.
That's wonderful. And I think most people on the call and watching can relate to that. I was just like, oh God, yeah, my first jump from the corporate world was to start my sewing business, and I did exactly that. I really, I didn't find or didn't look for whatever, find a way to scale that business in a way that I could maintain it without running like a crazy monkey on a hamster wheel, right? So yeah, definitely learned that one the hard way. Now, you've also given me the hook into like the kind of critical question that I wanted to ask. And so you've already, you made this really easy for me. So what I wanted to ask you, what differentiates, because I think we all have bought online courses, and some of them, I mean, at least I've done both. I've bought them and never looked at them again, and I've bought them and went through every single piece of content there religiously, and anything in between. So the question is, what differentiates a crappy one from a great one?
Yeah. So the short answer is a lot of little points along the way. So there's a lot to it. I'll touch specifically on, what you mentioned as the difference between not finishing and finishing a course, between starting it and falling out versus starting it and doing every single thing and continuing, because that's definitely one aspect of crappy versus not crappy. And the answer is actually pretty simple. And it all for me is all about the onboarding process of the course. So what is that first touch point you have with a person who's about to take your course? And you set out the expectation and you reiterate that why. So in your marketing process, in your sales process, you probably already, you did the, I don't know if convincing is the right word, but you did the inspiring and kind of the messaging around why buying this course is so important. And so now they did, but it's time to really go even deeper. So now they're on board. Now they're like, okay, I think I want this, but it's a good time to like really dig even deeper why it's so important for them to now take the time, because they've invested the money and that's part of it. But our time, we're all here because we want to be more efficient. So we know the value of our time. And so now we're asking them to invest their time. So it's time to go back to that inspiration again, saying, okay, now you invested money. Why should you invest the time? So I find going back to the inspiration and then really making it super, super clear what the experience is about to be like for them. So they know what every step is going to entail, how to approach it best, how much time it's going to take, and what they can expect along the way. Because I find that when our brains know what's about to happen, it's much easier to take those steps forward. So some of the crappy courses will be not very well structured. So you're like, okay, I just learned this and now I learned this other thing, but what am I supposed to do with it? How does it all connect? How do I apply it? So it's creating that really intuitive and logical step-by-step model, and really communicating that that's what they're about to do is super, super helpful to help them go through. And then final piece on this particular question is, I mentioned how much I love seeing like in my clients' eyes and on their faces that the impact and the value. And so one thing that people are doing is putting out those fully autonomous online courses where there is no interaction with the creator. And it's fine as a business model. It's out there. It's okay. I'm not going to say it's bad. But if you're able to provide some sort of personal, whether one-on-one or group, guidance and support, that really, really helps them. If they do get stuck at some point in the process, what do they do? If there's not an option for them, that course is going on the shelf. So being able to support them along the way, I find super valuable. It doesn't create something 100% passive income, 100% scalable, but I find that it's totally worth it to make it a little less scalable.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And actually, it is very much in line with what people responded. I don't know, a few months ago on LinkedIn. I don't know, can't remember even how the topic came up, but I asked, have you ever taken a course that you did or didn't finish, and what made the difference? And there were like loads of responses, and it really all came down to, well, if there's no personal interaction, I'm probably going to drop off, right?
It doesn't take a lot to, we don't like blocks in movement, right? So if you're taking a course and you're moving forward and you come across a roadblock and there's nothing, you can Google the answer. Like, if there's not an easy way to bust through that roadblock, especially for the lower priced courses, there's not a lot of incentive to keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you really focused in on the actual experience when they're taking the course. So now, what about that same question, crappy versus great, when it comes to designing and selling it? Like is there a sort of a differentiate, or what's the differentiation before they buy?
Will you rephrase that maybe just so I understand?
Well, see, your starting point was, okay, now they've bought the course, right? And now we want to make sure they don't drop off, right? So I'm now curious whether there are concrete or like tips or things to keep in mind to design and position, describe what you're offering in a way that people will actually be interested in buying it to start with.
Yeah. And, the first thing I'm going to say is make it super, super congruent. I think, I know I've bought courses where the description didn't really match what I got. Yeah. So it doesn't 100% answer what you just asked, but that's really what came to mind for me is when you're working on the marketing is like, don't oversell it, don't sugarcoat it. And so one thing we do, so I take my clients through the Thriving Online Program Blueprints, which is a 90-day program. And we design our marketing messaging and our course at the same time. So all the words are kind of the same. Everything stays congruent. And when somebody reads the marketing messaging and they say, yes, this course is for me, and then they buy the course, it's the same thing. It's like, it's exactly what they expected. You know what else in marketing? It really, for me, it really just keeps coming back to this authenticity. I'm not a huge fan of launches and time scarcity and things that aren't necessarily overly, if it's real, it's real. But I know a lot of times people put that fake urgency on things just so people would buy. For me, I am more of the belief that I really want to be able to serve people when they need me. And I don't want to force them on my schedule so that I can make more money this month. I would love to support people whenever. And so I don't close. Every once in a while, I'll have a specific group program where the doors will close. But my core program is available for enrollment all the time, because if you decide you start creating your course tomorrow, I want to make sure that I'm there. And that's part of what I teach my clients too is, if you have a group program, you have to close the door, cool. But consider, do you want to be available for them when it's their time? So that's something in marketing that I find to be really important and goes a little bit against kind of mainstream course marketing knowledge.
Okay. It goes 100%, like 180 degrees on the other way. Now, the question is, is there anything you kind of do in, like, if you don't use the kind of, okay, doors close urgency, because I've got courses that are that are evergreen and they're sitting there, but it's like until I kind of bring that to people's attention, it's like, oh yeah, I'll sign up for that one day, right? So it's that yeah, I kind of know it's there, but yeah, tomorrow, maybe the next month, and then they get distracted. And also, mine in that particular case, they're sort of hobby kind of things, So it's not business building, where I think there's perhaps a more natural urgency there. But I don't know.
There can be. Yeah, it's to that, I would say, so I'm constantly marketing my program. So if you look at my social media, my emails, there's always calls to action. I'm always putting out free resources, webinars, things like that, just to get those people at the right time. I would say, if you want to incentivize people to do it. Now, I do love bonuses that have timeliness to them. So the doors aren't closing, but hey, enroll with me by September 15th. And you can get an extra strategy call with me, or you can get something of value. So that's something that works, because it's not fake. Nothing is closing. It's like, hey, I really, I want to enroll 5 extra people this month. The first 5 that want to enroll get this awesome free bonus that's not going to be available next month.
That's clever. I love that.
So things like that are still super, like I'll still be around next, or price, I raise my prices all the time too. So it's like, hey, quarter's coming up. I'm going to raise my prices. If you want to come in at the current price, come in today.
Yes. Oh, that's great. They're fantastic tips. Yeah, it makes sense. So when it comes to okay, I have an idea for a program, right? So, and I do. So Now, the question is like, well, what I've done with my sewing related courses, it was always I've sold them first, right? Because I didn't want to kind of spend the time recording videos and making a whole damn dress if nobody wants to watch it, right? So that's one question. Do you agree with that? Would you say it's better to sell first? Or do you say, well, okay, I have to have kind of my structures or my module. At what point do you start selling at people?
Excellent question. So I separate the need and the demand into two separate components. So when I say I work with highly skilled experts, they're ones who already deliver their services. So they know there's a demand to have the problem that they help their clients solve to be solved. Now that they're solving it in a different way, but we know that there are people who pay money for their services. So for them, I don't find validation in its true sense of the word very important because we know people pay for the problem. If somebody's creating something completely new to them, I have one client with whom I'm actually not even taking her money until we do a little bit of validation because it's one of those concepts that sounds really good and neither one of us feels strongly enough that there's a demand for it to really go forward. So I gave her an exercise to do some validation before I'll even take her down any part of the process. Yeah. That's unique. And that is it's just a super new concept that I'm not comfortable taking our money until we validate. For everyone who we know there's a market for, we don't create the whole course. Actually, I'll rephrase that. I give them the option. So what we do is we create a launch day strategy. And so launch day is the day, your cart opens, you're ready to take clients in. And people have different, there's some people who want the whole thing done. They're going to be able to sell it with more confidence. They're going to be able to feel better that once they get their clients in, all they have to do is serve those clients and then they're not trying to serve and create at the same time. The other group, I say the minimum you want to have done is your onboarding module, your module 1, and an outline for the rest of the course, including where all the information is coming from. So it doesn't have to be recorded, it doesn't have to be written, it doesn't have to be placed in your platform, but you want to be pretty clear how you will fill out the rest because, again, once you start serving clients and you're dealing with maybe some tech issues and all these things, and you're creating your course, that could just be a lot for people. So, really understand your own brain and your work style and your time available to know what that's going to be like.
I'm good. That's fantastic. I'm giggling because I'm thinking back on when I did my first one. I literally sold it off. Like I sold it off an email. It was like, hey, I want to do, I'm thinking of doing a course to how to sew a whatever, costume. These are the modules. Do you want it? And boom, boom, boom. And I basically, I think I sold 10 or something. I'm like, okay, that's enough for me to do it. But then it was like, I said to say, okay, we roll them out weekly. And then there were moments where it's like, oh, shit, I have to get this module out and I have to get it recorded. And so, yeah, everything has its, advantages and disadvantages.
It does. And, and I always say, like, look at your schedule. Are you homeschooling your kids these days? Like, what's going on in your life to where are you going to be able to create it in that way? And so I just want to hop back to validating really quick. And we start working on messaging in week 2 so we know there's a need for the service. If you're an expert, somebody's been paying for your one-on-one services, we know people are willing to pay for it. Where the disconnect could be is in the messaging. So in week 2, we really start working on that marketing messaging, including having you talk to your dream client avatars to really understand how they think about the problem, how they talk about it, and how they think about the way you're going to be delivering it in a different way. And so you do get a lot of, and it's not a yes or no. At that point, it's not a yes or no. It's just really being able to capture their language to use in your messaging so that it really resonates with the right people.
Yeah.
So that does start very early.
That makes perfect sense. Now, another thing I'd love you to touch on is something that I noticed when I recently did some mentoring for Thinkific. Right? It's like, well, anybody who doesn't know Thinkific, it's an online course platform. And there was often that idea that, oh, I need to make this course really valuable. And they shoved so much content in there, right? So, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure whether you're doing yourself a favor. I always get the sense that, especially these days with information, so much information freely available, the value of a course isn't in the amount of information, it's actually in filtering out and really condensing it to, so what's your take on how big in terms of content an online course should be?
Yes, this is one of my favorite questions, because there's still, especially for people who are
prepare that one.
No, especially for people who are coming from an hourly charging model, our brains will have a tie between kind of amount of work and amount of time to money. And like you said, the relationship is actually inverse, meaning because your client's time is valuable, the less of their time you can take, quicker you can get them to results, the more value there is to them. So less. Like I always say, what is the critical path to results? And you can add some optional things if you feel like they'd be valuable in there. But what is the critical path to results? And when I say critical path, it's all about action. So again, information is free. Your clients can go on Google, they can go on YouTube, and they can find all the information. What's right, what's the good information is, still a little gray, but it's out there. And so we create a path of action. So if this is the result you want them to have as a result of you taking your course, this is where they are today. What are the action steps they need to take? What is the minimum amount of information you need to give them to enable them to take those steps? That's the information. As experts, we think they need to know what we know, and that's false. They need to know the why this is important. Like I said in the beginning, in the onboarding process, they need to be inspired to take the action you want them to take. So the why is important, and just enough of the how to enable them to do it. So the shorter, the better. I always see these questions online is like, okay, I have a 6-week course. How much am I going to charge for it? Or I have an 8-week course. Like, it's not about the time. It's about the results and being able to get there in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad you say that, because I think it's a trap that's easy to fall into, to think, well, I can't charge. And I think because it is also related to charging, isn't it? Way when you think, well, I want to charge whatever, and so I can't just pop their 5 videos, right? So.
Yeah. And the other thing that comes up here is like, I think the other reason we want to give all this is like, you look at some of these sales pages that are like a mile long, and it's like, and you get this, and you get this, and you get this. And then they start listing these bonuses that are like, where if y'all have seen where it's valued at, just to get this like crazy high, valued at $20,000, but you can get it all for $97 today. Like, we all see the bullshit in that. And so it's that overstuffing, right? And it's like now they're giving more and more in these bonuses so they can fake stuff, that value number that is still fake. It just, are you going to get a few more sales? Maybe. Are those going to be your dream clients? No,
I don't think so. And actually it's something that Ramit Sethi does really well. He's got a very simple module structure, very logical, and then every time there's relatively pretty short video, there's maybe some, related content. And then there's always, well, if you want to dive deeper here, he's got what he's called the resource vault. And there he's got you can geek out there, till you go blue in the face. So that he actually does give a lot of information for those who want it, but he is very, very precise in keeping that structure clean and not overwhelming. So that absolutely
so important. Yeah. And I love that model of giving more if they want it, and also cautioning them, don't I think, really depends on my topic. So with the online course creation, it's like you start doing it and you're so excited. And then you start working, and that with anything new, right? That excitement kind of fades. And so I always caution people when they're down at this point where they're not as excited to not go down information rabbit holes. Cause it's like, oh, but I'm doing stuff and I'm learning. It's like, no, you're supposed to be continuing on this path, but it's uncomfortable here. Maybe this is where the sales process starts, whatever for them is. It feels safe to dive into those rabbit holes. And so that's part
Yeah.
of it too, is like, don't go there unless, you really need it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. You already touched on the experience, but we had, like, Anya ask a really interesting question, and that was for people who have been doing on, like, in-person workshops and events, right? So now, what are some tips to create an experience online that is kind of impactful? So are there, and I remember Danny Innie who talked about it when he had his live event, and in 3 weeks he had to kind of bring it all online, and there was like, oh, actually, in the room we do talk to your neighbor exercises. So how do I, and Anya had some really interesting examples there where people actually sit on chairs in front of each other, right? Or they sit on a chair and then there's like an empty chair in front of them. So they kind of role play talking to this imaginary person, so where sometimes you can say, oh yeah, you could use breakout rooms. Sometimes there is sort of something that jumps to mind, but are there any tips or resources for getting, obviously you have to get creative and to think about what it is you're actually trying to achieve with whatever exercise, and then find a way. But is there anything that, any tips you can give for cases like that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's funny. I was just in a virtual workshop last weekend where we did an empty chair exercise. That's funny you say that. And because the other chair is empty, it was easier to do because we didn't need another person. Yeah, it's really, it's understanding the completely different environment your audience is in. We would love for them to all sit here engaged, video on, but we also know the reality of them being at home. And especially if it's on a weekend or if it's families with kids at school now, they're probably going to be interrupted. So it's allowing some grace for the experience. Just really, some tips would be 45-minute sessions, breaks every 45 minutes. We cannot have attention span much longer than that. And that allows people to attend to their kids, do, whatever people do at home. And again, I come back to expectations, letting them know exactly what's going to happen. So, from 10 a.m. to 10:45, this is, you will be with us. Please be present. Please have your camera on. Then you'll have a 15-minute break. So just know you'll have that time. I love physical mailings. So I love it if they can mail something. So there's, whether it's a workbook, or I was in a virtual workshop where they just sent a box of snacks, and it was just like, I think we're so disconnected from physical things these days. It just felt so good to get something in the mail. It was a handwritten note and some snacks, and it really felt good. Absolutely. Breakout rooms are important and powerful. It was Christine Schlonsky. I think Christine. Mm-hmm. She did, I think the software was called Remy or something, where instead of like Zoom breakout rooms, it was actually like little virtual tables. Oh, and you can see who's at the table, and you can like click on an empty chair if there's an empty chair. So it was a really cool way for that kind of networking.
There you go, Anya. Because Anya asked about that as well. How can I drop in from one group to another without them? There you go.
It was a really cool, it was like as close to walking around a live room as you can get. And maybe that's your lunch break, where like, hey, go have lunch, pick a table and go have lunch. I think Remy, but check with Christine if that's not.
Yeah, I'll check with her.
And so that was a cool, that was a cool experience, I thought. Because it does, like, as much live as you can get, I love it. Depends on your topic, of course, but like a little bit of breath work, a little bit of movement, a little bit of, meditation, whatever it is, just to break up sitting and staring at a screen.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And I guess it comes down to sort of somehow finding a way to connect that physical offline and the online world. And get creative. I find, obviously, as a tech monster whisperer, I'm going to have to ask you, do you have a favorite learning platform? And is there a favorite sort of delivery mechanism, in a sense that you say, well, if we're not talking if we're not talking sort of a live interaction, say, hang on, there's Karina, I'm going to stop your video. if I'm just thinking sort of interactive videos, does that make a difference?
Yes, yes, yes.
When there's like, it's instead of like sending them PDFs to download, have videos, or then now where you can have interactive videos where they can click on things. And I think, I would almost imagine the more I can do rather than just passively consuming.
Yeah, so my favorite learning platform is LearnWorlds. And actually, for people who are watching live, they're having their summit starting next Monday. And when it's over, I'll pop the link in there.
Yes, please, because I signed up for it, and I was thinking of popping them in the link because Jane's talking there. So.
Yeah, I'm talking, and I'm super honored to be talking to this. It's Guy Kawasaki, it's Neil Patel, it's just some really, really brilliant minds in this space. And so LearnWorlds does interactive video, and I'm glad you asked about this, better than anyone, and they do a ton of research around it. Mm-hmm. And they're saying the engagement when there are interactive features in the video is just through the roof. Mm-hmm. And what this means is you can put little quizzes in your video, so they're not just watching, they can't walk away, they have to watch and then actually like answer questions to move forward. Mm-hmm. So I love those features. I also find it very important to present information in different modalities, in video, audio, and text. So for me personally, audits, like if you just talk at me in one ear, out the other, I will not catch it. I will not catch your name. I will not catch what you tell me. I need visual. I'm not the only one. I need name tags. That's why I love Zoom. I got everyone's names right up here. And so for me, if it's just audio, I'm not going to get anything out of it. So, if it's a video with PowerPoint, I do text transcripts of anything that's audio or video because I want to make sure that people can find it. Another reason, like think of your experience watching a video, and let's say you want to come back to a certain point to like, what was that concept again? Now you're scrolling through the whole video and there's you have no idea where it is. In text, it's so easy to find. And I love the combination of text. So I'll do text and then I'll do audio or video where I'll just go deeper into concepts. I'll go on, my little soapboxes and, give more examples and things like that. So I say, listen to the audio and read, do both to really, especially the more complex, complicated concepts. For worksheet guidance, I like to give them text and audio. So my instructions there are read the text so you know what's about to happen, grab your worksheet, and then play the audio and follow along. In the audio, I say, okay, question number 1, do this. Okay, press pause and answer the question. So then they don't have to look, if they're looking at the worksheet, they don't have to look at another thing. They can just listen.
That's brilliant. Ooh, this is a live like I honestly have an online course on my mind. So it's like I'm just sponging all this up.
Yeah, I'm giving you like all my best tips that are all just in my paid course.
You're gonna have to kill us afterwards.
Seriously, this recording cannot go out.
Well, we can hide it and we can. That's okay. You're gonna have to kill us afterwards.
I want I want everyone making a course, whether it's paying me or not. So I just think I just my love for this business model runs deep.
And it comes across like I just love that how he's passionate about. Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I think we're sort of 22. I'd love to open it up if people want to come on. I'm going to turn off the recording now, and then if people want to pop up and ask something and have some comments, then I would love to give them the chance to do that.
And Bertie put something really important in the comments. Remember inclusivity too. I am in no way going to pretend to be an expert, but I know just things like subtitles for video, the different modalities are for sensitive to hearing impaired visual. So that's where the different modalities are really important too.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. That was super interesting. I was like, I'm just sort of sponge. It's like, oh, thank you. And thanks for coming.